DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. How was your week? You good? You just went out. Did I hear you? NightWatchman, are you there?
Yeah. I had a little technical difficulty there, you know.
You had me scared. I thought you had an intruder.
No, sometimes there's just too many buttons to push, you know.
I hear you. Well, NightWatchman, I think we're going to have a nice little lively discussion, especially when I know a few weeks ago, didn't we have the actual first dispensary in New York City for adult use happening with a nonprofit downtown called Housing Works?
That's correct.
Wow. So soon, I guess Northern Manhattan will actually be recognized. What do you think?
I don't know.
you know what? Let me get you. Let's see. Why don't we hear from some experts? Okay, what do you think?
All right. So why don't you do the introductions and I will escort people into the lounge.
Oh, that sounds like a plan. You know, why don't we first bring up the co-founder of Harbor, and she'll let us know what that is, and that's Alana Hankin-Biggers. Bring her out.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you all.
Absolutely. And so, yes, I will first go on the record and say the state misses you, okay?
I had a long haul working for the state. Yes.
I hear you. But you know what? Bottom line, ultimately, you know what? There is life after state service.
Oh, an exciting life. I recommend it for everyone. Yes.
You're guessing, right?
Yes, indeed. Well, now, you know what, NightWatchman? This next gentleman, I had been on his heels, man, trying to track him down, trying to nail him, say, yo, man, when you coming? When are you coming on the lounge, man?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that, of course, because I first actually met him at an event at the North End Food Hall. Okay.
Okay.
That was like last year. And that, of course, can only be Vladimir Bautista, the CEO and co-founder of Happy Munkey.
That's right.
Thank you for having me, DJ LeRoy and
Yes.
NightWatchman. It's been long overdue, but I couldn't let my Harlem brother down. You know, me being from Sugar Hill, that'd be blasphemy.
Yes.
we have had all the cannabis legends in New York on except you. So now, you know, we're trying to complete the set, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for having me in Arena, because we need people that are really true to the culture like y'all to really amplify voices to all the different folks out there that don't know what people like us are doing.
Absolutely. And you know what? And all I can say, Vladimir, your reputation precedes you, because Arena knew that you have been one of these bright stars out there, you know, in the periphery. So I'm happy that you've come on to the lounge.
Yes. Don't get it twisted. Arena is also a bright side. So don't let it downplay that.
Excellent. And you know what, NightWatchman? What about a veteran of Soul Lounge Primetime? What do you think?
Why don't you just say returning to the lounge?
Okay, then you know what? You take it. Take it right there. Who we bringing out there?
Esther Lelievre, aka the Queen Mixxy, is in the building.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, how you doing, Esther?
Yes.
All right.
I'm happy to be back again as a former returning person before people think I was in the military.
Absolutely. And like I said, Arena and Vlad, please, Esther, and the reason that she's back is because she knows that this is a safe space. And so let me start this out. First off, Arena, I had no idea. About this particular journey of yours in terms of cannabis. So please do tell the genesis.
Sure. So obviously I've been a longtime supporter of cannabis and legalization. But my background really is, as you know, Curtis, I got my start working in local politics in Harlem. And so, I worked quite a bit on various different economic development initiatives for the state, worked in the governor's office for many years, and then went to the agency level to oversee the Atlantic Yards project, the Columbia Manhattanville expansion project, all of which had claimed to have very robust community benefit agreements, right? That had private developers had committed to giving back to our communities, and in terms of jobs and affordable housing, opportunities for MWBE vendors. I became very disillusioned and frustrated with that process, left the public sector, went to the private sector, worked for a number of startups and kind of boutique real estate development firms that worked on really interesting, creative placemaking projects, partnering with local not-for-profits. And when the MRTA bill passed in March of 21, I was lucky enough to be introduced through an old real estate colleague to my now partner, Paul Yao, who was the CFO of a very successful dispensary in Great Barrington, Massachusetts.
Wow.
And the bill, obviously, as written and passed in New York State, really spoke to me. It allows and creates opportunities for people of color in a way that has not really been created in our country before. We're on the precipice of a really important moment, I think, in the history of our country, as we're at the forefront of this amazing industry that has the ability to give people of color and folks who've been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs and targeted by the war on drugs, more specifically, to really gain access to this new economy. So that, for me, was incredibly attractive, and that's what I've been working for and working towards with our not-for-profit partner, the Doe Fund, and with the rest of our team.
Excellent. Okay. You know what, Vlad, do tell, because you also mentioned, of course, my neighborhood, Sugar Hill. So when did the light bulb go off in your head to say, yo, this may be a way to do something and bring some real empowerment to my community?
Well, my journey's been a little long. I've been in cannabis for 25 years.
Wow.
And been consuming it from a very young age because, as you can imagine, growing up in Harlem, 80s and 90s, it was rough. And all the other drugs were much more harsh. So I felt like I found the way back then to take care of myself physically and mentally and financially in a way that I'm not destroying my community or myself. So that journey started back then. Fast forward, our big claim to fame as far as the brand and the company was like 6 years ago when me and my partners starting a lounge by Times Square on 38th Street, where it was like a speakeasy where people would be invited, etc. And that really took us to another level because we really started mixing the corporate, the culture, the political, all of it, and using cannabis as a scalpel, and it really took off. And within a year, Forbes called it the Studio 54 of cannabis. So we knew we were on to something. Cannabis wasn't completely legal yet, so we started a lifestyle company, and we started with media, merchandise, etc. And then we got into advocacy, and the way we got into advocacy was when the bill was being presented, the MRTA, there was also the CRTA. At the time, the person that was in power was trying to push the CRTA through because that was like, no real social equity, really to create like a bidding war for the licenses, aka billionaires only. So I saw that coming, and me and my organization, and we knew that it was going to impact generations to come. We knew we had a little bit of influence, so we gathered all our advocacy friends, and we also started a petition, and we got over 1,000 signatures. We got people from all over the world who were posting on social media. So the person that was in the governor's office was like, who the heck is Happy Munkey? What's happening here? And I think that played a little bit of role in us getting the murder Fast forward, we started, after that passed, we knew we had to mature with the market. So then we started doing more high-level compliant events. Our first big one was the first 420 after legalization. We did a 420 event at Bobby Van Steak's house on Wall Street, across the street from the stock exchange where they used to sell slaves at.
Wow.
Live and direct, you know. And then after that, we went and partnered with the Van Gogh Immersive Experience, which was an art exhibition going on around the world. And that broke another ceiling because it was kind of like the first time that high-end art and culture cannabis did something together. And we continue elevating in that way. We just did something in the Classic Card Club for our 5-year anniversary where we had over 1,000 people. And now we have applied for the card program, and we're patiently waiting to bring our talents to the compliant retail market, hopefully.
Wow.
That is an amazing story. And that person who you mentioned in the governor's office, I heard about his visit to the Happy Monkey way back when. So that's when I was like, wow, okay. So he's on everyone's radar. And as you said, the administration at that time was not trying to have the type of cannabis program that we actually have now. So we really all are very, very blessed and favored that things happened the way they did. And
they didn't want it to be as colorful as this whole panel right here.
Oh, not at all.
You know what? One of the key things, and I guess we might have to say this a few times during the show, is that when we hear murder, we're not talking about killing anybody. No, it's an acronym.
Murta.
Yes, thank you.
MRTA.
Exactly. So you know what? Returning guest Esther, I'm intrigued now because you mentioned education. So important. So do tell.
Yes, so I'm one of the co-founders of CCF and the CEO of Mixxy's Blossom. So education has been pivotal for the whole entire experience of the cannabis sector. We started over, I think we're going on a year now, but I've been in the cannabis space for a while. I might not be as outside as everyone, but I've been in the cannabis space in a different sector and been focusing on the educational part of it. So we started in high schools with 9th graders and then expanded in working with seniors, veterans, community advocates, working with legislation, state senators. It's just been overwhelmingly so fast. And continuing to do the work where we're now starting to even try to reach middle schools because we see that a lot of children have been consuming cannabis, and it's not just the cannabis part. Some of it is fake cannabis, like I said in the last show, but getting them to understand and getting the parents to understand in our community, because we want to support the cannabis industry. And I had an event, I think last month, that just came together to have the real conversations around how do we move and pay forward. And it's been so important. One of the highlights, I was at the pop-up dispensary show, and I started figuring out a way of my niche network event to actually have people understand what their niches are, how to network effectively in this space, not only in the cannabis space, but outside the cannabis space, because there's auxiliary businesses, organizations that are going to be pivotal with this cannabis industry. So I want people to expand their minds to understanding where they can get resources from.
Gotcha. And you know, one of the things I would just want to ask NightWatchman, Esther, I certainly do know education is important. And I do know when we were having some early initial conversations at Harlem Business Alliance, one of the things that they said, and tell me if you found this to be true, that some of the big pushback initially in terms of legalization or even consumption had been, let's say, the Black church. Did you find that in some of your travels?
Yes. So we did a 50 pastor workshop in I want to say July or August of last year with Pastor Bird, who's in Bed-Stuy. And we went with a lot of people in the congregation and addressing. And one of our biggest advocates have actually been in Brownsville is Reverend Kareem. We're actually trying to work on a youth higher praise event. Isn't that funny? Higher praise event, just to have the conversations. And it was so successful because that same pastor 2 weeks later went to the On the Revel event. So that for me was like, oh, she wasn't hiding. She didn't have no hood on or nothing. She walked in and she said that in order for her to minister better, especially the people that are coming out of jail, I always address, okay, what about the kids and family child services that got removed for people from cannabis? Where is their social service support? Where are the supports for people who watch their parents get raided or be arrested and now see it's legal? Those are the things that we end up finding out even more. The discussion of people who got excommunicated out of the country is still not a discussion. What about the veterans who got dishonorable discharges because they had cannabis on them? So there's just so much expansion in roads that we need to address, but it all starts with education, because then when our community has the education, they can support us and advocate with us when we're talking about legislations, when we're talking about bills, when we're talking about truly making sure that the impact is coming back into the community. So even this Saturday, I'm having a veterans affair where I'm talking to a whole bunch of vets, and I was able to go to Albany and address those concerns of the things that they met the first time. So to me, it's not moving fast, and I'm okay with that, because it is a lot of things that we're debunking. This prohibition of cannabis started in the 1930s. We're trying to undo something from the 1930s. It's going to take time. And not everyone's going to understand, but I appreciate it. I was able to also go to Albany during the caucus and really sit and watch the panel with Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes. It was great to see her not only focus on the recreational, but the medical, because as we're talking to the aging community or the senior community, for them, the benefits are medical, and it's because the cost. If we're talking about equity and accessibility, the cost for those people, they can't buy $100 in eighth packaging. That's just not realistic. And some of them have health concerns and really are proactive in really wanting to know what cannabis is, and we're not taught anything about it. So it's a re-education and education that's happening.
Beautiful.
Now, Esther, I also want to ask you to talk about another event that you put together. You work on a lot of events, but you had an event where you invited some of the multi-state operators, the big cannabis companies, to sit down with some of the legacy operators to talk about common ground. So can you tell us a little bit about that event and how that turned out?
Oh, that was, it was a big event. So I've been watching and been in the cannabis space, going to, different events, different panels. And, I'm a medical patient myself. So I wanted to figure out a way to really push common ground in where MSOs, ROs, and legacy and card applicants can really sit down and figure the places of alignment. Because the reality is that both industries, for me, needs to work when it comes to seniors, when it comes to medical patients, and then you want to have the recreationals, the people want to enjoy their cannabis in the way they did. So I had partnered with Senator Sanders' office and Assembly Member Anderson's office to do Leading the Charge event, which was the second of it, where we had MSOs, ROs, card applicants, legacy people in one room, finding where they can find common ground and support each other in the places, not to try to convince anyone that you need to be on my side with this and this, but there were commonalities of where MSOs and ROs can really support. So there has been conversations of, hey, how do we support you? Because they have regulations that restrict them from being able to interact with card and legacy people. But there's places where they can actually interact and support, where it's like the comment period. So I had worked with about 13 or 14 cannabis lawyers, and they came and drafted up conversations of where they can align in commenting on the regs with legacy and card applicants. And it was really great. It was very cohesive. And then it was actually, and then they did actionable items to start supporting. So from what I heard, one of the legacy people, they're actually getting help from, I believe, Etain to help with their marketing strategy as they build out their card or dispensary. So that's the next step. Now you're getting a mentor that understands the regulations, compliance, and you're getting the one-on-one mentorship. And that's what I want to see continuing happening. You know, they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of money. They're not perfect, not at all, because I see medical patients are being reduxed, but they do have an advantage of understanding New York State is a very compliant state. And I don't want to see card applicants or legacy people going to legal lose their license just off of something that just they didn't know, which is education.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what, Arena, NightWatchman, before I heard you and you talk about your partner coming out of Great Barrington, Massachusetts, NightWatchman, you were talking about trying to do a travel business, consumption business to Massachusetts. Is that not correct?
You have a good memory. No, I did back in the dark days before New York finally came to its senses and legalized. I said, all right, well, Massachusetts is gone legal. And I looked at a map and I was like, okay, so where is the closest place in driving range from New York City to Massachusetts?
Wow.
And I came up on it. It was like Springfield area. And so I had a concept of a type of consumption lounge that I won't give the details of because I can still do it. I just need a little money. but that's, yes, I did have a concept of a consumption lounge in the Springfield area, and they just opened up like a casino in that area. And but once New York State started to going in the right direction, it was like, okay, well, you know, it's very hard to do something out of state. You know, it's learning, not only is it learning a whole nother set of regulations from the state that you're in, but you don't have any standing. You know, at least here in New York, I know elected officials, I have relationships. I know some people who work for the state.
Ooh.
And, you know, there's an opportunity, there's more of an opportunity to use you know, contacts that you have than trying to do something out of state in a state that I've never lived in and only passed through a couple of times. So that idea went back into the shelf of other great ideas.
well, do that now. Arena, tell me your story. Did you find him or did they find you?
So we met through an old real estate colleague. They were my partner, Paul Yao, and an old colleague of mine, Alex Friedman, who actually was one of the founders of Sugar Hill Capital Partners.
Oh, yes.
They were a big owner-operator in Uptown, Lower Manhattan as well. He owned a number of 100 multifamily buildings, and I worked with him on kind of ground-up infill development projects. I was connected with the company because they had created this really innovative program where they were converting the basements of these buildings into artist studios and giving artists those studio spaces for free in exchange for artwork. And my husband was the first artist in that program.
Oh, nice.
So, and they did a lot of work to support the growth of local Harlem entrepreneurs. Like I think they helped to rent a Chipped Cup and oh my gosh, Lauren's place,
Harlem Public.
Harlem Public.
Yes.
And the coffee shop on 118th, they did a lot of work helping to design and build spaces for kind of burgeoning entrepreneurs. They're really committed to working with community players. And after the rent reg laws changed, that company really did not do well and didn't really rebound from that. But my team is really comprised of a lot of folks in the real estate sector because that's my background. And that gave us obviously a huge advantage as we were searching for a space for a dispensary because, you know, the barriers to entry into the cannabis space, you know, are huge and they're real and they're a lot more complicated than just any other standard industry that we know of and that we are familiar with here in New York. So that definitely served us very, very well. So yeah, that's how we kind of got into the space, and we have an incredible team of real estate professionals, cannabis professionals who've been in the cannabis space for 6, 7, 8 years. Most of us. I'm the only one who's kind of a newbie to this space, but I'm helping to lead the charge and really the community impact. So it's super exciting to be here.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so Vlad, so I'm thinking about I show up to your space there on 38th Street, was it?
Yes, on 38th Street, correct.
So I'm wondering, would I be admitted, or you say no, man? You don't pass the muster. What's going on there? Tell me. How did you?
we had a space for 20 years. Right now, we're actually filming a Happy Monkey documentary, and we just caught like one of the last events we had there, like it's just like a reunion or whatever, and we finally gave up the space after 20 years. So
wow.
the way that it was there was an elevator just like on the street, a freight elevator.
Wow.
There was security inside the elevator, and if you didn't say the right thing, you wasn't gonna make it past that elevator.
I love it. So definitely when this was all kind of like going down, security precautions up the wazoo, just making sure that, let's say, the right element, the like-minded individuals would be admitted to the space.
I think it played a major role in why there are consumption lounges licenses in the program, because when some politicians went there, they couldn't believe that we were compliant before you were able to be compliant. You had to be 21. You couldn't have alcohol. You couldn't. We were already like a lot of the rules they have now. Like we were doing that on our own before MARTA came out.
Well, Vlad. So excluding alcohol from the space, is that so that people won't go buck wild? Or explain. I'm just curious.
It was really like a social experiment, and I think we proved it. It was to prove that you do not need alcohol to have high quality people gather. And then we got the data to prove, after we operated from 2017 to like 2020, that we had everybody from the billionaire to the politician to the gangster to the doctor to every single kind of person. Never an argument or fight. Every race, religion, Jewish, black, yellow, blue, gay, straight, everybody could think of, and never one argument or one fight. So it just proved what you just said, Curtis, that cannabis doesn't bring that side out of people. It actually is more of like a unifying social consumption substance, not like alcohol and other things make people more aggressive, and the data is there to prove it.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm throwing out something here. So we do know that there is a dispensary location that's supposed to happen on 125th Street. Okay, there's been pushback. And one of the things that they're pushing back on is that they feel that the element that is currently, let's say, hanging out around in front of Whole Foods, 125th and Lenox, might also travel there. Now, I'm not an expert. I don't know. But I don't think that that particular element will be attracted to the dispensary. Someone weigh in on that. Please.
It's nonsense. We've got to protect it from the children. I mean,
I think that's where it is. It's the idea of like, oh, what are we going to do with the children? And, oh, they're going to make our neighborhood a bad neighborhood, or we're already fighting struggles. That's what I saw even when Long Island was doing it and they opted out, because they have a different issue over there with like opioids and all those other things. It's just a misconception around what people gathering with cannabis, or some people, they like to just get their cannabis and go home. Some people do want to be in a social space, and it's not necessarily outside. I'm sorry, New York has like 12 seasons. And every season is not the season to be outside. And that's where it's just the misconceptions. That's why I've been doing a higher focus on Harlem, outside of Brooklyn and Queens that I've been working in. It's just to get these misconceptions out of here. When I met with Community Board 10, they didn't know a lot of the information outside of the workshops that we did with them, because they just grew up in the DARE program. I'm now seeing reoccurrence of like Reefer Madness videos popping up all over the place. And it's all this, propaganda. They don't understand about working collectively. These are people from your neighborhood. And I had to say that when we went to an intro on cannabis event in Southeast Queens, the people from my block, Corner Boys on Jamaica Avenue, they came in and they was like, hey, how come we're not being represented in this space? And I told them, you know, the community wants to support the people that's already been in their community, but there's still these misconceptions, these barriers, these people are scared. People are like, oh no. I paired a CBD spray at a senior home event, and the lady was like, oh my gosh, she was like running like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get high. And I'm like, ma'am, it is a CBD sleeping pillow spray. But then when she didn't realize nothing happened, then she's like, oh, where do I get one of these? It smells nice. And then it went to, you got some gummies?
No.
I was like, ma'am. So it's just changing those misconceptions, getting people to understand. And then when they do get that understanding, the flexibility is now, it went from, oh, I don't want nothing to do it. And it's like, well, how do I support the cannabis state? How do I get in there? How do I get a job? So it's crazy how just a little bit of education now shifted the mindset of like, how do I get in the industry? How do I support the industry? How do I invest in the industry has been another big thing. A lot of people, because when people look at veterans, they assume that veterans are like 65, 75. Yeah. And I was like, no, my cousin's a vet and he's 38 because he did 2 tours in Afghanistan. So he's a vet now. Yes. So veterans are even a different look and aspect when we're talking about it. So education for me is always like the beginning start for everything.
Gotcha. And Arena,
wait. Let's finish on this topic, because number one, there's been plenty of data in other states that have legalized, and there's never been an increase in youth consumption as a result of a state legalization. So that's number one. The number two is that the dispensaries that open up do not need kids to be successful. And so it makes no sense for a business owner who puts their capital on the line to open up a shop of a product that you know is going to be successful with adult use to serve minors. There's no rationale for assuming that these shops are going to sell to minors when they go through a very stringent process in order to get their license, and they literally put their license at risk. So and the issue has not been those legally licensed shops. The issue has been, okay, there's a bunch of illegal shops that have opened up everywhere that are actually closer to schools that are the problem. And so it doesn't make sense to fight this one legal shop that is opening up in a business corridor that will bring traffic to that corridor, and not look at the other situation, which is something that I think that the Office of Cannabis Management is trying to deal with. So.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things, because Rain, I know you're a parent of 2 young children, and so how do you envision in terms of educating them about the type of business that mommy might be into?
That's a very good question. I mean, there's so much stigma and misinformation around cannabis still. There's a lot of stigma in communities of color in particular. So, you know, my son just turned 2, my daughter's 5. So I'm not really having a lot of deep, intense conversations about cannabis yet. But certainly, you know, education is key. I think back to an earlier point, there's just a lot of misunderstanding of what a legal cannabis dispensary looks and feels like. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that it looks and feels like an illicit smoke shop, which it does not, right? So there's a lot more checks and balances. The products that are sold in those spaces are obviously tested and regulated. They're dosed properly. The legal cannabis dispensaries attract a very, very different clientele than many of the illicit shops. At least the folks who are actually understand the difference, which, you know, it's incredibly complicated. So I think there's a lot of education that still needs to happen. But, you know, I feel strongly that blocking out opportunities for entrepreneurs of color is not the right thing to do. Blocking out opportunities for good paying jobs for people of color in Harlem is not a good thing to do. I mean, at our spot, we've hired 50 bud tenders to work in
Wow.
our dispensary. 95% of them are people of color from low-income communities. So being able to create a thriving Black-owned business in Harlem on 125th Street that hires locally, is a great thing.
Gotcha.
I just
And
wanted to piggyback off of what
Mhm.
she said, and
Gotcha.
that's what I think partnership is. One of the partners we've really worked with has been Air Wellness, who are not in New York, and they
Mhm.
had supplied us with packaging so that we can actually show people what cannabis looks like. So, for example, we show like this is a child-proof lock.
Mm.
The tags on the things, the barcodes, even for medical patients of like, this is yours. This is a
Yes.
prescription. It's like going into CVS, because the reality, our neighborhoods have not experienced or seen what the real dispensary cannabis has been. So for me, those partnerships has been really great, because now I'm exposing our neighborhood to what they think the bodegas are, these, bad actors, they want to call them, or the gray market, and really showing them like, hey, this is what this is really going to look like. So once I started bringing people's merchandise, they're like, oh, where do I find this? Oh, this is not what I thought. This is not what I grown up in. I'm used to a Ziploc baggie kind of situation. And they're just so shocked. And I think that's why the pop-up dispensary was so important, because people have never seen it and they're not seeing it in their neighborhood. So that's why I'm always pushing of like, support people coming in your neighborhood so that you can see these actual things and then see it in reality in your neighborhood. So addressing things like parents, our kids' workshops don't happen without a parent workshop. Like that is mandatory. It's parents and this, because we want them to have the same education.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And you know what, Vlad? So this is what I got to know. So let's say you're going through all of the regulations, all of the things necessary to open up legal spot. Around the corner is someone who hadn't gone through all of that. What should happen to that particular spot?
Well, right now, what the goal is, what I'm trying to do myself is that I think is going to be very impactful, is that I have a lot of friends on that side, and they just like everybody else that has been mentioned on here, the war on drugs has traumatized our communities in a lot of ways, where
Yep.
a lot of people don't give things a chance. So I think the role that I'm playing that is going to help a lot of different factors is like, I was a guy that was on your side. I know what it's like. I know what you're going through. It's better on this side. And look, I'm not telling you, I'm showing you. So I'm not talking down to you. I'm talking directly to you, because I've been in your shoes. And what I like to say is that to them is like, to get them to cross over is like, right now, we've hit a crossroads in this industry and where we are, And I'm like, you could either be two people in history. You could be Al Capone, who was very notorious, but when his reign was over, his whole family, his generation was over. Or you could be Joe Kennedy, that did the same thing as him, but made the transition at the
Yes.
right time, and he put his son in the White House. So
Yeah,
it's
wow.
just about who you want to be. And now, me taking the leave that I've been in, they know that I've been in their shoes, but now I've been in 50 articles, New York Times, Forbes, all these different things. I think for people from our communities that have been through all the trauma we've been to, without representation of somebody that's really been through what they've been through, it makes it hard for them to believe. And that's why part of my mission with public speaking, all these things, is to inspire these people to cross over. And then to talk about what you all were just talking about a minute ago, I'm experiencing it myself. I've been able to do the highest level of things between 96 and Wall Street, done events in Vegas, Miami, etc. Now, as of recently, I decided to come back home to Harlem to bring some resources, some opportunities, some education. And I got the only pushback from everybody. I got through the community board, but I didn't get through the PD. I didn't get through this one. And it just inspired me to do it more, because it helps me see why our communities is so difficult to change, because if it's not somebody that cares as much as me or Esther or Rana, they're not gonna go through all the trouble to make the difference, because they get so much resistance. But I'm really out on a mission to show them that everything that some of you have all said, with cannabis comes, opioid use goes down, violence goes down, alcohol use goes down, you know, resources and opportunities go up for our people. So
Yes.
now I'm making that a mission to come back with all the resources and influence I have, to use it to change that mindset that the community have of the devil's lettuce and all that craziness. You know, we have to change that, because they really believe that, you know,
Yeah,
and
yes.
you know, I have the patience to show them that's not what it is, just like as many others on here do, because it's necessary, because this is going to be the biggest transfer of wealth for marginalized people that we'll probably ever see in our lifetime. And it'll be sad because of old ways of thinking that our communities miss that boat.
Absolutely.
So
Wow.
true. So true.
So true.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess one of the things. So all of us, are, of course, New York State. The rollout of the program. We certainly know what has happened in the West Coast in California. We certainly know what's happened in Colorado, whatnot. Do you think, and capitalizing on what you said, Vlad, do you see that this particular program will be equitable, that we will actually see Black and brown people benefiting from this rollout?
I can tell you that right now, currently as it is, because I'm a steward of the game on a national, international level. I've been studying most of the major states in the country. Even as of right now, the program is only 2 years old. It's done more than any other state has. It's the first state where smaller players like me, people that look like Ariana, etc., that are not the MSOs, that are not the billionaires, go first and get a first mover advantage. They have created a fund to help card applicants, mentorship programs, real estate. So I really know that it's by far going to be the biggest market in the world, and by far the most equitable and colorful market in the world, because it already is, right? And I have data to prove that. Chicago has been legal for, I don't know, 6-7 years. They just opened their first Black dispensary.
What?
Yeah.
But
Oh,
but Curtis, you know that because we had some of the Chicago legacy
yes.
operators on our show, and they told us some of the horror stories they've dealt with
Yeah.
in their state, and so it was a cautionary tale that's kept us having our eyes open to make sure that that didn't occur here, and you know, to the credit of the Office of Cannabis Management and the Cannabis Control Board, that it has not happened, and there does seem to be a real commitment to making this work. I wanted to ask Arana and Vladimir a little bit about how you chose your branding and how you use that to infuse your own personalities into your marketing and your customer experience.
Sure, Arena. So we, things have been moving incredibly quickly. So we actually hired a really incredible branding agency to help us. Union Square Travel Agency is all about reaching new heights, traveling to places unknown, to tap into your most creative self, your best self, your highest self. It's about transformation and evolution. So that's kind of where we came up with the name, and we love kind of all the connotations that come along with that.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Vlad?
Then ours just happened really organically, and it had to do with a lot with my partner Ramon Reyes. He's like more of like, the Dominican hippie, spiritual guy. And he was always into monkeys. Like that was like his spiritual
Wow.
animal. So he already was into that. Then what we knew was, coming from the rough and tough neighborhoods that we come from, and we had already seen the branding of people that come from our neighborhoods, and it was like gangster monkey and tough monkey. And we're like, we're not trying to represent that. We want to make the people happy.
Yes.
We're not. That's not what we wouldn't want to put that kind of energy out there. And that's how the name started. Then we rocked with that for about for the first 4 or 5 years. Then as we matured and got ready for the compliant market, we had to get rid of the character, because as Arena knows, when you go into more compliant packaging, I'm sure you do, Esther, too, that you cannot use anything that seems like you're catering to children. So then we had to come out with the more evolved, not like the monogram that says like HM together. That is our new logo now, because like I said, we've just been maturing with the market, and that's how we came up with that.
Nice. Well, certainly, Esther, when you showed some of the real medical products that legal dispensaries have, I mean, that was really impressive, because like you said, child guards and all of those particular things, if you have an inkling that somehow children might be exposed to that, that's real clever. I like that. So in your education, you bring some of the samples to show kids?
Yeah, I bring some of the samples to show the parents mostly, and to also tell like the point of the children is that no real licensed dispensary that's making millions of dollars is going to sell to you. They're not going to take the chance to sit here and lose their license in any capacity. So we show the child warning packages, the labeling, all the different things. We also work with a lot of local products, local brands as well, so that people can see what could be in their neighborhood. And I partner with a lot of people in their brand. I think I have a Love Jar. I think I have Udo Barely Bang, which is a CBD person in Patch Hog, Long Island, that's had his CBD. And then start really seeing like these are local brands that could be coming outside. For the seniors, I show them like, what a prescription box looks like. What is that experience? What a medical card. Some people were like, oh, I thought it was like a little paper thing. And I was like, no, it's like a little driver's license from OCM, because they've never seen it before. And that's the biggest thing for me. I definitely am excited about the branding stuff that is coming out. I definitely want to see Black women brands. I think it's been very underrepresented in the cannabis space. I think Cannabis Insider just came out with a whole thing of like the percentage of women in this space. And I know as women, we are so creative and have so much knowledge, and in the medical side, we haven't seen that. So I want to start even seeing that even on the medical side. Like right now we have 10 licenses, and the colors are there, are not there as well.
There's no color.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying it all looks white. And I know I've been meeting, I did the Cannabis Insider, Cannabis NYC are doing their borough tour, and there were so many nurses and Black doctors that were coming with like, how can I get involved? I want to have a medical dispensary. I want to have a testing facility. And they have the background. Yes. And I give it up to Dr. Charles, or Dr. Dukes is what they call him. And he does Black Health Connect, where he's starting to expose the healthcare within Black and brown people, of showing where there's avenues. He's a pharmacist in a medical space, but he wants to open his own space and figure out and hire people that look like us, so that we're more representative, not as a face card to just say like, hey, look at us, we have someone of this color here. Yeah, but to really genuinely have a holistic, because people want to see us in this space. Yes. They want to see Vlad. They want to see all the people in their spaces that look like them, that's been around their neighborhood. And then that will get the comfortability so much better in the neighborhood, because they've seen someone that's from their neighborhood, that's been around, that understands the perplexity of, 125th and First. That's where I was hanging out. Or 135th and Lex, where I was also hanging out. Yes. Or 125th, and understanding those little ecosystems of those different areas. So I'm always going to push that and promote that. I don't take away from big industry. I rather a slow and steady pace, because as a person that worked in pharmaceuticals, I know what big pharma can do in this space. And I'd rather us have a chance to succeed. New York is definitely done something different. And that's why I give them grace and patience all the time, because no one else has done it. No one, not even Canada, has done it. So for me, slow and steady is the pace for me.
Well, then, so this is my question that I'll throw out for you. I remember in one of the early forums that we had at Harlem Business Alliance, it was also mentioned in terms of research, because remember there had been a class one, class A. What am I looking for? Night Watchman. It was class schedule 1.
Oh,
Schedule 1.
Schedule 1, yes.
Thank you. So, which prevented us for even kind of like studying the benefits of the drug. So now I understand that. Let's say, what is that? Israel has done an extraordinary job in terms of the study, understanding the potential, the benefits, and whatnot. So now I throw it back out to you guys. Are we now here in the U.S. doing a better job in terms of researching and understanding?
No,
the
because
drug?
we still have the Schedule 1 is in place.
No, but we are doing a better job on a state level, because I was just on the OCM meeting they had yesterday where they announced developments, and one of the developments was, of course, like my brother Nightwatcher said, like not on a federal scientist level. We're not there yet.
Yes.
But on a smaller local statewide, they mentioned that they will expand research and development as far as like, so like we got a long way to go, but a little bit of a step in the right direction, because before I never even heard that in any state, like any sort of real research and development as far as like anything medicinal.
Wow.
And what has
me
been
and Bob-
happening on the state level is there's been education programs that are happening in various higher learning, universities and colleges. So there's preparation, there's workforce preparation that's going on, but the actual research on the medical side, and I've had a lot of conversations with Dr. Stephen Robinson about this, head of the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. Shout out to him. He's been on our show a number of times, and he was the first one to explain to us that cannabis has been used for medicine for over 5,000 years.
Yes.
And it wasn't until the early 1930s that you could find it in the pharmacies. And at some point in time, it will be back in the pharmacies. But there's still this issue of the Schedule 1 that we've got to look at and try to make sure that something happens on the federal level, Joe Biden. We actually have a Democratic, have had, an administration that has the power to do it, and they started a very, very slow process of doing it. And I think it's something that, those of us who consider ourselves activists need to continue to raise that issue about, because I personally think that we haven't seen the breakthroughs yet on the medical side that we'll see once the research comes in. We've already seen anecdotally certain areas where cannabis is blowing away the pharmaceuticals, and we're probably going to see more of that once they can basically support it with the proper data.
Well, question then. So mentioning the pharmaceuticals, are they making a big push to get into the industry, the cannabis industry? Someone weigh in.
Well, for me, when we had the meeting, which Bob was there for, we had the MSOs, ROs, and that was one of the main topics that we talk. I bring a person that had like 16 years in the cancer experience, Sweet Mary Brown, into it, and having the conversation of research needs to be done. From what I've spoken to, Dr. Chain, who was part of the advisory board, has been aggressively working on getting more research, because the research is not just helping the medical, it's going to help the recreational. So because people need to know how to be able to use this plant for themselves. I definitely believe in mindful consumption, and what works for me does not work for everybody else. I'll take a little 5 milli gram of edibles and I'm good. That's it. Right. That's all I need.
Yes.
And everybody's pain tolerance, I have herniated disc. I was a former cancer patient. So
Yes.
the different levels
Wow.
in which I had to use cannabis for myself, the research needs to be there to back up not only the medical side, but the recreational side. So when we're having these conversations, we have data and research. And while I was in Albany, that was one of the things I was speaking to legislators about and the city council boards, is that we need to push on more research so that not only recreational, but medical has defining pieces to explain, and patients and recreational know how to use of the plant.
Gotcha. Well, I guess one of the things I'll also say, when was and tell me this, Vlad, Esther, Arena, when there was an aha moment, because remember, you think about cannabis in terms of just that. But when you discover that actually the medicine can be transferred to your body a number of different ways, and they discover that, was it a gratifying moment?
I mean, I think for us, we kind of lean on in our dispensary, kind of the adult use, not the recreational side, because even though we're not a medical dispensary, we have a lot of customers coming in who use cannabis to help them sleep, to help their pain, inflammation, anxiety, to help them just get through the day. So I think it's really kind of a misnomer to say that we call it the adult recreational industry, because it really is being used for so much more than that. For the majority of people who consume cannabis are using it to improve their lives in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. Vlad, go ahead.
I can tell you that I've seen some amazing stories, and it goes all the way from adults to children. A friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, does pretty well for himself. One of his children had an extreme epilepsy that he would get seizures like 20 times a day.
Wow.
This is like maybe like 13, 14 years ago. So he was really, really, really concerned and really going to all the doctors. So he finds this one doctor that tells him cannabis can help this. He's like, so why? I don't understand. Why is it not being helped? And the guy tells him, because there hasn't been a clinical study done. He's like, why there hasn't been a clinical study done?
Right.
He said, well, because the pharmaceutical companies don't want to do it, because they're the number one anti-lobbyist against cannabis, because that won't be good for their bottom line. But if a private person will pay for it, we can do a clinical study. My friend said, how much it is? He's like, 300,000. He's like, for my son, I don't care what it is. And his son became CBD patient number one clinically studied, and now does not have 10, 20 seizures a day. And that's just one story I just want to tell you out of like 100 I know of how this is changing people's lives on a medicinal level.
Incredible. And you know what? Go ahead.
I want to piggyback off of what he was saying, because we went to a school and we had a kid that had extreme glaucoma. Wow. And when I started mentioning CBD and the different uses for it, he has extreme glaucoma, like Coke bottle glasses, and still has to take a picture and just to see. When he heard about CBD and the way we use, because we have a biochemist that is part of our team, he jumped up and was like, can I have a conversation with you now? I didn't even finish the presentation and wasn't even aware that that could be a use for him as he's 17 going into 18, that's even an option for him. We also have a lot of parents, like he was saying, that have children with different learning abilities, IEP, that have seizures, that are pro CBD. In addition, I even met a football player who had an injury and used a CBD rub to help him with his football injury. And he was about, I think, 16 or 17 on a topical level. So that discussion is not even happening. So I do believe in research, and I know that there's people in the state working on that, but it's a steady pace, because, doctors only want to push something that has research. But Israel, I don't know why they like 10 years ahead of us. I don't.
And I guess I was sharing with Arena that I had surgery in January 25th, and it was a hip replacement. And of course, they tried to give me Oxycontin, but thank God, no pharmacy in Northern Manhattan had it in stock. So instead, Esther, and you can appreciate this, a good old-fashioned edible. and I was fine. So it has those particular benefits that we certainly have to this point not really addressed. So Night Watchman, I guess we're going to go around.
Yeah, we've got to start wrapping up, and we want to give each one of our esteemed guests a chance to just give us some last comments.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, you want to start off there, Raina?
Sure. So it's this honor being here with Vlad and Esther. You know, I feel it's going to be essential to have folks outside of government advocating for an equitable space in this new industry. Come visit us at Union Square Travel Agency. 51% of all profits go towards the Doe Fund.
Nice.
Helping formerly incarcerated, formerly homeless Black and Latino men. And look forward to hosting you at our dispensary on 13th and Broadway.
Excellent.
Vlad?
I just want to say I'm honored to be here with you, Curtis, you, Night Watchman. You know, I know you're all some pillars in Harlem. I'm honored to be here with these two cannabis revolutionary queens that are helping us change our communities and the way that we're looked at. And then as far as Happy Munkey, everybody stay tuned. We're coming to a theater near you before you know it. And just remember, everyone, you're too blessed to be stressed. Things will get greater later, and always choose happy.
Excellent. Esther.
Hi. Yes. So make sure you guys follow me at Queen Mixxy. My email is down on the link, but also follow us on Cultivated Community Foundation and LinkedIn. If you know an area or neighborhood that needs support, we are willing to go wherever. We've been in NYC. We've been everywhere. We're going to continue doing the work, but I really want to push supporting our local businesses. I'm very big on that. Continue advocating in those spaces, create partnerships. You know, there's space for everyone in this industry and outside this industry to support this industry. So I'm definitely excited. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the introductions too, because majority leader People's Club definitely pulled up on me and was like, "Oh, you were supposed to contact me from that interview." And I was like, "You right." So follow up and support all these local businesses. The industry is going to be so pivotal in New York, and I want us to be on the grassroots level and supporting community and building it up as much as possible. And stay tuned to more stuff to come. And I'll definitely make sure you guys get the first dibs.
Perfect. Night Watchman, take us out.
You've been listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. And look for us on all your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts. Thanks for joining us. Support your local cannabis entrepreneur.
Yes, support.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye.